All right, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be installing Mita Motorsports Steering Boss kit. It's pretty nice. It comes with OEM hub, OEM steering wheel, brand new OEM nut for the steering wheel, horn ring, horn retention ring to hold the stock horn button in, brand new screws for the steering wheel, electrical tape, resistors, and this is for making the horn button work for contact with the back of the hub, and even include grease for the back of the hub. This is covering for this red wire. It's gonna go down your steering column, so I guess he wants to cover it so it's not red, and some zip ties. So a pretty complete kit, and looks pretty straightforward. They provide you color instructions. The text is in Japanese, like as always from Mita, but you can use a translator on your phone. The text is, there's not much text in here, it's all pictures. Okay, first step is you're going to want to disconnect the battery because you're going to be working on SRS components. So after you do that, you're going to wait 5 or 10 minutes, and you're going to want to pry these panels off of each side of the steering wheel. There's one on each side, held on by Phillips screws, and then you just pry it off. And then you're going to want to disconnect this yellow SRS plug, and you're going to plug this red plug into the plug to keep static charge from affecting it and possibly deploying it. So once you do that, then you can start taking off the Torx bits on each side of the steering wheel, and the airbag will come out. You reach in here, hold this plug. And you're going to grab this red plug, again on the back of this panel, and plug this in. And this should protect it. So next, pop off the panel on the other side and start releasing the Torx bits. Here's a quick shot of the right side of the steering wheel. You do not, after you pop off the cover, which is right here, you do not have to undo the Phillips. You just have to undo the middle Torx, and after you undo this Torx and the Torx on the left side, the airbag should come out. Okay, so after releasing the 2 Torx bits on the left side and the 1 Torx bit on the right side, you can release the airbag and just store it someplace safe. Okay, so now that we're in here and the airbag's out of the way, undo this connector and release the steering wheel after you remove this nut. Okay, so I'm gonna release this plug. It's a little finicky. Once I remove it, I'll show you what you need to do, what I'm doing right now with my screwdriver. Okay, so if I flip it around, there's this tab you can see here. And so what you need to do is reach, with this plug in place, reach around the back and pull the tab out this way. Pull the tab out this way, and it'll release. Next, you're going to unplug this. I believe this is the ground for the horn. Press in the center of this tab and pull to the right. And then lastly, before the steering wheel will come off, is this 19mm. So this would be best if you have an impact wrench, but if you don't, just use like a tire iron or something, or a breaker bar. But gun works the best.
Oh, nice and fancy.
Yeah. All right, so to take out the steering wheel, just release it like this. And you're going to want to just make sure the plugs for the reel go safely through the back of the steering wheel, so you don't damage it. We're not going to be using the SRS reel, but just in case you want to put your stock steering wheel back on, you don't want to damage anything. So it comes off like that. Okay, with the steering wheel off, we're gonna want to remove the SRS reel next, but in order to do so, we're gonna have to remove the lower panel, these two lower panels, the steering column and the kick panel, knee panel, in order to access the bottom of the connector of the SRS reel. Okay, so to pop this panel off, you're gonna have to get access these two pieces, you're gonna have to release this piece down here, just the front pieces in order for it to hang down and access these bolts. And then you're going to want to pry off the top pieces with an interior pry tool in order to release the top clips out. Then you should be able to undo this steering column panel. And it looks like it's being held in by some plastic clips. I'm holding in wire looms and such, and just release those and remove it. Okay, so you can see here that these two wires are being held in with these clips into these two pieces right here. And in order to get this out of here so you guys can see it, I released those. You don't necessarily have to do that in order to access, but you do have to access this yellow connector right here. These blue pins connected into this piece of the steering column. So I reached back around basically from behind, released these two pins. So you just pop off this blue clip. It just holds the SRS reel to the bottom of the steering column. And then you're going to want to access the back of this plug right here where these ridges are, and release. Pull this through. So this is the end of the SRS reel, and you should be able to, looks like there's another blue retention up here. You just want to pop off this blue clip. I just decided to pop off half of it and release the harness. All right, and then after you release this, you're going to want to remove the bottom part of this column piece. So there's screws on each side, and you're just going to pop this piece off. Okay, so to release the bottom of the cover, to release the bottom of the steering cover, you have these three Phillips on each side, as you can see here. And the hardest part is releasing this clip that clips into this piece right here towards the bottom side of the cover. So the clip is these pieces right here. Have it on both sides. As you can see, it's this piece right here. And you kind of just have to reach underneath the column and press in these tabs while pulling down on the bottom of the steering column to release that bottom piece. Okay, so to release the top part of the steering column, first thing you gotta do is this wiring loom. So there's a wiring loom on both sides of the steering wheel with these blue clips on it. If you follow this back, it's hard to show you guys, but back in there you can see that blue clip back there. It's connected to the top of the steering column. So you have to basically put a long screwdriver in here and basically pop the blue clip off. And you're gonna need to do that on both sides. Here's a look at the wire on the right side and the clip that you have to pop off. These ones actually turn out to be pretty soft. So just put a screwdriver in there and pop it off. And that right there is where the hole that it was connected to. So next, to release this top piece, you go under here, and next to this same wire where you popped off the blue plugs down there, if right next to this blue plug, or blue clip I mean, is a Phillips screwdriver holding the top piece down to this bracket. And so I released it, you just saw the nut fall off. So they have it one on both sides, so the other one's right there. And once you release those, then the steering column should come off. Now you can release the whole thing. So here's a look at the bottom of the top cover. On the bottom of those clips that connect it to the bottom cover. And you can see the various pieces that held it on. All right, so now it's time to take off the SRS reel. So I should have mentioned the very first step is to park with your steering wheel straight. But now you're gonna wanna mark what's up. And so I'm lining it up with the crosshairs of the brass or gold piece inside. So basically like that. That way when I unbolt these various screws for the SRS unit and take it out, I can know where to center the steering hub. So take out the steering wheel SRS reel, the three screws at the top, these screws holding in this piece, and looks like you have to release these two also, one on each side. Okay, after releasing these two pieces, these two screws right here, and these three up top, you can finally remove the SRS reel. We're at the point now where the SRS reel was holding this in place, so you want to make sure that you know what side's top. I'm just going to mark it really quick, just in case it spins 180 degrees, but this thing can rotate, so you want to line it up with your line right here. Okay, so the next step is to install this resistor, and this is for the to keep the SRS light off. So underneath the dash, you're gonna have this yellow plug that was connected to the bottom of the SRS reel. You're gonna pull this rubber piece back, and this is where you're going to T-tap this resistor into, if you look at the plug where these prongs are pointing downwards, you're gonna tap them into the farthest to the right and then the third farthest to the right. Okay, so important to note about these T-taps is one side has this divot. One side has this divot on the end, whereas on the other ones there is a half moon cutout. You can see the cutout on the end, whereas on this side there's a divot right there. So that's for the terminating end of this wire right here. So you want to put that like that. Close it like that. And then again for the other side, here's the round piece sticking out, so that's the terminating end. So we'll stick this white wire right there. Make sure the white wire doesn't stick out. Make sure the white wire doesn't stick out past this piece, because when this closes down, this piece sticking out, it's going to cover it. Like that. The terminating end is different from this side. This side on the left is meant for the wire to go all the way through, whereas on this side it's a cover to protect the wire that's terminating inside the T-tap. And you're going to go ahead and attach these to the SRS. So again, the last wire. And the third wire. Okay, so if your T-taps aren't staying together like mine weren't, you can just zip tie them together using a couple of zip ties, small zip ties that Mita provides. Okay, so next is hooking up the horn functionality. So you're gonna grab this piece right here. Mita wire tied these washers on here, so I remove them before installing. So you're gonna grab a couple of the screws that was holding on the SRS reel. Put that on there like so. Put it on loosely, and then undo this other wire tie, safety wire. All right, tighten it like that. So this piece right here is what's going to make contact with the back of the hub, and this is why they provide you grease to slather on the back of the hub so it makes contact and the horn can ground and function. This wire we're going to feed down through probably one of these things right here, and it's going to T-tap into this, T-tap into the leftmost wire down here. And you're probably going to cover this with the provided corrugated wrapping. Okay, so for the horn button, they provide you a different type of T-tap. So I'm going to wrap it around here, and the terminating end is going to go through this side. All right, so this T-tap works in a couple of phases. So this left piece is hinged in 2 spots, and so you want to it'll snap in to the side and still leave the top able to be moved around, and that just centers the gray wire in place. You're gonna want to feed the red wire through, and then make sure it's bottomed out, and then clip this into place like that. I'm just gonna give it a couple more. Make sure the T-tap makes full contact with the wires. All right, so we got this wire fished through these metal pieces right here and through the top of this bracket. And so this is just hanging out here. And if you recall, this SRS harness was connected to this bottom piece of the steering column via the blue bracket, but the blue bracket connected actually onto the other part of the reel that we removed. So what the instructions tell you to do is to just use this provided zip ties and put a zip tie through these 2 holes and around this yellow plug to keep it from flopping around. And you'll also want to just go ahead and zip tie this piece out of the way as well, just connect it to anything up here. But now it's time to move on to installing the actual hub. And so what we're going to want to do is grab the hub and probably grease up the back of it with the provided grease. Okay, so here is the hub, and the back side, you'll see this is what's going to make contact with that little spring that Mita provides you, and we're going to have to grease it up. It kind of comes a little bit greasy, but not enough. So they provide you this copper grease, and so we're just going to slather some on. Here's the instructions that they show you right here. So you don't need to put on too much. This might be a little too much, so I'm going to wipe it down a little bit. You want to still have a good electrical contact, but you don't want it to end up squeaking or making scratchy noises if you don't put enough, because it's just going to be rubbing against the back of your hub every time you turn. So, and then if that happens, you're going to have to take off your steering wheel and re-grease it. Okay, so when sliding the hub on, you want to make sure that this top is facing top up, and these 2 screws should be up and down at 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock. And you want to make sure that on the side of the hub has these notches in it, and you want it to line up with the notches on the steering, so it can make sure it cancels out your turn signals. So like that, and make sure it kind of lines up with my marking up and down. And I'm not sure how this is going to sit, but occasionally, whether it's Workspell or this OEM Momo, sometimes you have to get an alignment afterwards and get your steering. It might be off by 1 tooth or something. Sometimes you can fix it by turning this hub one tooth, but sometimes it sits in between the teeth and you just gotta go get it corrected with your alignment. Okay, at this point now, before the hub is even bolted in and before you put the steering wheel on, I like to make sure everything is functioning correctly as far as the horn goes. So what you're going to want to do is grab the horn grounding ring, plug in your horn button. You want to make sure this is a spoon button, so it has this brass grounding ring right there. You want to make sure it makes contact with the larger grounding ring, and this is plugged in. And you're gonna need it to touch the hub in order to test it out. And I tested mine out already, and it works, so that's good. That way you know that all the wiring down there is good, and that you can go ahead and button it up. And so now all I need to do is do the finishing touches, put the bolt in, line up the steering wheel. Don't forget to put on the cover for the hub, and then start putting everything back together. Here's a test. Okay, and now that with everything lined up and horns working, confirmed working, you're gonna want to install the nut. They provide you a brand new one. All right, and the torque spec for the center nut is 36 foot-pounds. Oh, I need to put the steering wheel on. Okay. So you might need to put the steering wheel on like with 3 bolts first in order to have something to hold on to and torque it. Okay, so before I put on the steering wheel, I'm going to put together all the rest of the interior first, so the steering wheel is not in the way. But just clip this one back on top and then put the screws in from reverse order of how you took it out. And before you install this bottom piece, make sure you install this bottom part first. All right, so buttoning up the interior, you're gonna wanna go ahead and zip tie this plug to the bottom part of the steering column, like this. And then go ahead and clip in the blue clips on these wires on the sides of this and just bolt it up. So now it's time to install the steering wheel. So this ring goes with the round side facing towards the front of the car. So for the Type S steering wheel, before you install this garnish ring that holds in the horn, with only 6 holes, you install these 3 bolts first to hold the steering wheel on. Then you put the horn ring in, and then this on top. Okay, so after you have these 3 screws in to hold the steering wheel on, you're gonna grab the grounding plug it into the back of the horn button. And then you want to make sure this, if your horn button has this grounding loop, you want to make sure that that sits on the inside of this piece. So, and now you want to make sure, this is the time where you want to make sure the horn is straight, because once you have this ring on there, you're not going to be able to really turn the horn button. And here's the final install. The steering wheel, horn button works. Looks really nice. Thanks for watching.